Well, everyone, it's that time. We know who's going to be in the Super Bowl. We're getting ready for the Senior Bowl. So I'm throwing at you an updated 2020 mock draft. How about them apples? We're going to change up the script a little bit. There's a lot of Bears fans that watch me. You're probably wanting to know what I've got for the Bears. Now, you could surely check out the 2 rounds worth of picks in the description box below. But if you want to hear it straight from the horse's ass, let's talk about it a little bit. Now, you look at it and you're saying, why would you want Trey Adams? Why wouldn't you take a guard or an edge rusher or any other number of positions? Looking at it at that point, this is a guy that's been projected before to be a first-round pick. He's had his injury history, that's for sure. Maybe the upside is worth it. Maybe when you realize in general that Bears' offensive line just really isn't that good. Maybe you would look at Trey Adams. Would you potentially move somebody else in a different position so you could play him outside at tackle? Or are you looking long-term as him being the potential franchise left tackle that protects the blind side of when you actually get a real quarterback? Are you just playing the board there a little bit? You know, it's not just always about immediate need or most glaring need where these teams draft, especially when you start getting into day 2 and day 3. And then as far as pick 50 with Hopkins, the tight end from Purdue, which certainly probably would make a lot of people happy that they would take a tight end there. And it's certainly a big need, but how much is a second-round rookie tight end going to have in terms of an impact, especially with that quarterback and this play caller in this offense? I don't really know. But again, you're looking at it long-term, like when you actually get a real QB, how good could he be? Now, that said, you're saying, well, you just kind of rigged it so that way Hopkins would be there at 50 in your mock draft for the Bears. No, because if that was the case, if I was just trying to rig it, then I would have the Bears take Jordan Love at 43 and call it a day, if he even ends up falling that far. But it's just the way the board broke down. And then, again, let's be real here. This is a Bears team that has needs in a variety of areas, and it's not just immediate needs, but thinking long term. Like, do you want Charles Leno to be your left tackle for the next 3 to 5 years, or Bobby Massey to be your right tackle for the next several years? Let's get real here for a little bit. They just need really good players at this point. Switching gears, though, to talk about the actual mock draft itself. No change at the top in terms of pick 1. It's Joe Burrow, the quarterback from LSU. Pick 2, Chase Young, the edge rusher from Ohio State. Pick 3 is Derrick Brown, the defensive tackle from Auburn. I wonder as you go through the offseason process, is Javon Kinlaw from South Carolina going to shoot up potentially ahead of him? Either way, they both feel like studs that could be long-term impact difference makers in the middle of teams' defenses. But I look at Detroit and you might say, okay, well, they're kind of in that spot. Maybe they're hoping Chase Young would fall, and certainly I think they would be hoping that Chase Young would fall. But would Washington pass on him for an offensive tackle? Perhaps. But then you also bring Ron Rivera into the fold. Maybe he's going to look at Chase Young and say, he's going to be the dude that I build my defense around. So it certainly would make a lot of sense. Fills a need, seems like a great fit, fits the philosophy of the head coach, makes sense to me. And for Derrick Brown to Detroit, I'm sorry, Derrick Brown, if you get drafted there, but maybe you can help turn around this piece of crap Matt Patricia defense. Maybe. The Giants at pick 4, Jedrick Wills, the offensive tackle from Alabama. Why would I have him taken ahead of Andrew Thomas? Because we still got a lot of process to go. And I think as more people look at Wills more and more, they're going to like him more and more. And they're going to see some similarities in his game to Andrew Thomas's, but they're going to see other things that they like more in Willis's game than they do with Thomas. And again, you're talking about Daniel Jones. You got to be able to protect him. Do you really want to rely on a guy like Nate Solder to protect his blind side? I'm just saying. Miami, in this case, ends up getting Tua Tagovailoa. What would be really interesting for me with Tua is, does he still end up going top 5? He could. And is a team like the Raiders potentially going to be sniffing around and interested? Because it sounded like last year they had a lot of interest in Kyler Murray. So if that's the case, would they have similar interest in Tua Tagovailoa? While as a Raiders fans, you say, well, yeah, I want wide receiver help. But certainly you need it and you should get it. But part of the problem with the rebuild is you're doing the rebuild around Derek Carr, which feels like it's only going to get you so far. If you really want to rebuild and you really want to get to that point where you feel like you could contend for a championship there in Las Vegas, do you feel better about your chances with Tua, a healthy Tua, or Derek Carr? And I think that's an interesting question that this organization in Las Vegas would have to answer. Still feels funny to say Las Vegas. But in this case, the Dolphins get their man, but I wonder if they would have to move up a little bit or would feel pressure to potentially move up a little bit because they'd be worried that somebody else is going to jump them to take him. Be fascinating to see. And like you look at the Chargers at pick 6, they're sitting in kind of that awkward spot where Phillip Rivers may very well be done in Los Angeles. And if he is, quarterback obviously shoots to the top of the charts in terms of need. But does the talent match the need, match the fit, match the pick? I think that's a fair question. Like if you look at it right now, sitting at pick 6, would they really take a Justin Herbert? Are they going to fall in love with somebody like an Eason or Jordan Love from Utah State? I don't know. Like it could be a situation where they would take an Andrew Thomas because they still need help on their offensive line and then figure out later on in the draft maybe to make a big move up the board in round 1 to get a young quarterback. Would kind of feel like the right call for them, potentially. Carolina at 7, Okudah, the stud from Ohio State. Like you look at him, he's probably one of the safest picks in this draft. And Carolina, new head coach Matt Rule, being able to get a guy like him, a real potential top 5 talent at pick 7, has got to feel like a pretty good success story. And then we get to the wide receiver class, which I think everybody agrees is very good, both in terms of potential star power at the top and then just in terms of overall depth of talent throughout. And I've got Jerry Jeudy going 8 to Arizona. But there is that discussion, that argument to be had about, is it really worth taking a wide receiver in the top 10? So many of the notable guys in the league in recent years were not top 10 picks. Like DeAndre Hopkins was a first-round pick, but he was taken late. Odell Beckham Jr. was a first-round pick, but he was taken 12th. Like you have Mike Evans was taken 7th overall, and he's a stud, but what has Tampa Bay won since he's been there? Not his fault, I'm just saying. Like, A.J. Green was a 4th overall pick in 2011. Bengals went to the playoffs a few times. What did they really win, though? Like, Julio Jones was a 6th overall pick. Atlanta made that big move up to get him, to get in the Cleveland spot in 2011. They made it to a Super Bowl, but he hasn't won. A lot of these notable receivers like the Michael Thomases of the world, and you look at this year's draft class even with A.J. Brown, and you look at it with DK Metcalf a couple years back. Cooper Kupp was a 3rd-round pick. Antonio Brown was once a 6th-round pick. Juju Smith-Schuster, before he fell off the freaking face of the earth this year, he was a 2nd-round pick. Like, you go on and on and on. Like the day 2 wide receivers, round 2 and 3, those guys are really, really, really good. It's a really good hit rate there. Whereas the hit rate with first-round wide receivers is not quite the same, and especially some of those guys that you take high. Now, is that just a matter of taking guys too high? Could be. But it'll be interesting to me for guys like Jeudy, for guys like CeeDee Lamb, who in theory potentially their talent necessitates or justifies that they should be taken in those slots. Our team's actually going to take him in those slots. And is drafting a marquee wide receiver type like that high necessarily a formula for success? And recent history indicates it probably isn't. Another fascinating player to watch as the draft plays out is going to be Isaiah Simmons, the kind of do-it-all person from Clemson. I just say do-it-all because he plays safety, played linebacker, all this other crap. And there's going to be concerns about what position he's going to play, and I will issue this cautionary tale. Brian Urlacher at New Mexico in that 99 season played all over the place, and frankly, the last couple of years. He was a kick returner at one point. He was safety. He played inside linebacker, outside linebacker. He did all this crap. Teams had questions about where the hell they were going to play him. Like even the Bears, when they fricked into him with the 9th overall pick in that draft, even though they really wanted Thomas Jones and Plaxico Burress more, and those 2 guys went directly ahead of him in the draft, they got lucky. They got the better player. But even when they brought in Brian Urlacher initially, they were trying to play him at strong side linebacker, and he lost out on the starting gig to Roosevelt Cole, and that's what people don't remember. It took a Barry Minner injury a couple of games into that season for Urlacher to get the shot at middle linebacker, and the rest is history. First ballot Hall of Famer, face of the franchise for a decade plus. The point I'm getting at here is sometimes with a guy like Isaiah Simmons, Guys like Brian Urlacher. They are such special athletes that you will find a place to play them. You gamble on the athleticism, you gamble on the upside, and you figure it out later. And if you can't figure out a way to make it work, it's not shame on the player, it's shame on you as a coaching staff and an organization. Because you got to be really damn stupid. Really stupid if you can't make it work. The dude is an athletic freak. You can figure out some place to play him. I'm just saying. In terms of when you look at the rest of this draft, again, some of the previous trends I talked about continue. Offensive tackle class is very good, especially at the top. Wide receiver class is really, really good again. The defensive class I don't think is particularly special this year. Edge rushers, once you get down to Chase Young and then another step below Epenesa from Iowa, Gross-Matos from Penn State. It doesn't feel like a spectacular class, but there surely will be some studs mixed in. A lot of this will come down to that quarterback class and how they show out for themselves over the next couple of months during this draft process, because you start getting 4 or 5 quarterbacks going in round number 1, that drops other guys down the board. Some other teams are going to come out of this draft as really big winners. Long time to go. You can let me know what you think about my mock draft. That's it. I'm done talking about it.